If you talk it will, if you want to talk, you have to go way back. Good evening. This is the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast about love, marriage, and your personal development. My name is Dr. Joshua Mogri, and we are coming with our first marriage clinic for 2024. This is amazing, completely amazing that we are here for the first time this year, and it's a pleasure to have all of you here. I'm going to give a few minutes. Today we are actually live, so I'm going to give a few minutes for people to drop comments. When you get in, please put the fire emoji there, and in a few minutes we will start. Welcome to the Marriage Clinic podcast. Yes, it's absolutely amazing to have all of you on board. All right. We're still trying to figure some things out. So I will give it a few minutes, figure it out, and then we will be here. All right. Okay. So this is the first Marriage Clinic podcast we're having this year. It's absolutely amazing to be back. Last year was our season 2. This year is season 3. And season 3 promises to be an extremely exciting season. We've updated a lot of things. We have a lot of plans of what we want to do with you this year and to bring you quality content that is going to help you on your journey of relationships, that is going to help you on your journey of identifying the right person for your life, coexisting with the right person for your life, and also being able to manage yourself and your personal development well. Last year was great. Throughout last year, we had the best part. We did close to 40 episodes, which was a lot that ranged from premarital to postmarital, and we really did enjoy it. Now, this year, what we are trying to do, or what we want to do this year, is to make sure that we can give you more content that works for you. So in this first podcast, I'm just going to try and run you through some of the interesting topics we are going to have this year. For instance, we are going to look at working on yourself to be ready for love. Working on yourself to be ready for love. The role of forgiveness in marriage is another one that we are going to have. How to know if you are ready for marriage. For the people who are not certain about, am I ready? Is this the time? How to know if you're ready for marriage. Dealing with loneliness in marriage. Dating for single parents, how to date someone with a child. So dating for single parents, I'm going to have a whole conversation. If he is a born one, he has a child and you're dating him, how are you going to cope with that? Or if she has a child already, how to date a single parent. And also from the single parent's perspective, how do I go ahead to date once I have a child? We're going to look at managing marital finances. We're going to look at the importance of dating in relationships. We're going to also look at the spiritual side of marriage. I had a lot of comments last season where people wanted me to talk about marriage also from the spiritual perspective. Okay. Then we are also going to look at now we are dating, what next? 10 steps to take while dating. Now we are dating, what next? Then I'm going to do one on your personality and love, how the 4 temperaments affect the way you approach love, the way you deal with love. Then help, I don't love my spouse anymore. For the married couples who find out that they've fallen out of love with their spouse, what do you do? How do you deal with that? And then an interesting one. A lot of the time people ask me, in premarital counseling, what actually goes into it? Is premarital counseling actually necessary? And I am going to take my time to really look through it and begin to deal with, if you go to your pastor or you went to a counselor, what are the things that they should tell you in premarital counseling? And how are you supposed to go ahead with these issues? So that's another one that we are going to bring to you this year. For those who just joined in, this is the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast about love, marriage, and your personal development. And today I'm just taking time to welcome you to season 3 and also run you through some of the things we are going to be doing this year. So I'm going to talk about the need for post-marital counseling. And there's a painful one I'm going to deal with, which is sexual abuse in relationships, what you should know. Sexual abuse in relationships, what you should know. We're going to talk about how to plan for a wedding. Then one of my personal favorites that's going to come this season is dealing with the effects of past trauma, or what I like to call baggage. How the hurts of your past relationship are hurting you now and are going to affect the relationship. We will do that as well. So there is a lot coming to us this year. There's so much we're bringing to you this year. Additionally, the team is working behind the scenes seriously as we're trying to put together a couple of interviews for the year. So this year, it's not only going to be me speaking all the time. Periodically, we are going to have interviews with people you like, with groups of people, and bring you so much more that is going to make sure that season 3 will be the best so far. Now, that is what we are doing here as the Marriage Clinic podcast team. But the question is, how do you support us for this season to ensure that we go further? The first help, or the first thing you can do to support us, is we have more views than follows. If you could follow us on every platform, if you could go on YouTube, you could go on Twitter, which is now X, you could go on Instagram, every platform, TikTok, all the platforms, Facebook, all the platforms that I'm on, if you could go and you could follow, that's the first thing. If you can leave comments under our videos, it helps to push the videos further. And if you could recommend us to people. So on Thursdays, when we release episodes, if you could share the episodes with other people, it will go a very long way to help us. The other thing is, most of our podcasts are pre-recorded, as you may have noticed. But this year, once a month, I am going to be having a live. So once a month, the broadcast is going to be live. It's going to stretch longer than the short versions that we put out. It's going to be much longer on the once a month live sessions, which will normally happen on the last week of the month. So on the last week of the month, we're going to have a live where it's going to be more interactive. And these are the things that we are bringing to you. So today's podcast is really a very short podcast. If you do have a question, please drop your question in the comment section. The team will make sure I get your questions. I'm not finding your questions here, but they will make sure I get any questions that you may have about what to expect for this year. As we're also planning, and we're still doing recordings, if there is something you really want, okay, now I see Edem saying exciting topics. That's great. So if you could drop a comment right now, it will help me figure out the new system we are using. But then again, if you do have some topics that you wish I would talk about, we still have probably 5-10% empty slots that we still could work on topics that are dear to your heart. So if you have a topic that is dear to your heart, I want to encourage you to share, and we will deal with it. I will pause now for a few minutes. If you have a question, drop a question in the comments, and we will take it from there as we iron out our technical issues. So if you do have a question, please do drop a question. I'll do my best to try to respond to the questions, and we will take it from there. So generally, just to recap real quick, We are back with season 2. We are back with doing the best to bring you some of the best topics we have. We are also going to be bringing in interviews. We're going to be talking to people. We are going to be having a couple more exciting things to do. And once a month, I am going to be going live with you. Okay, I do have, let me see, it looks like I have a question here. Let me see if I can find it. One question has come in. I probably may be able to do 2 or 3 questions. So one question has come in here. Let me see. Yes, it says, wow, it really hit us with a big one. In our community, polygamy is common, but I'm not comfortable with my husband taking another wife. How do I express my feelings to him without offending his cultural beliefs? In my community, that's a DM. In my community, polygamy is common. How do I express my views to my husband without offending him? Well, first of all, I would go back to your premarital counseling or your premarital state. When the two of you were single, what did you agree on? That's extremely important. What did you agree on when the two of you were single? And did he promise you that he is not going to take on a second wife? So, for instance, if the person you are dating is Muslim, Muslims have, it is within their rights to take on up to 4 wives. So if he was dating you and he said he wouldn't take on another wife, and now he wants to take on another wife, then you have an issue where you can have a conversation with him. But it's well within his rights. Now, it's one thing if he promised you from the start that he wouldn't take on another wife, and then he's taking on another wife. But if he never made that promise, and you knew that the person you were marrying was a polygamist or had the right to be a polygamist, then you are going to have to look at coping mechanisms. If you married under traditional law, where under our cultures, all our cultural laws are polygamous laws. So if you did only a traditional wedding, which is a wedding, it still allows your husband to be able to marry additional wives. Now, the only place is if you've gone under ordinance. If you've done it under ordinance, then in that case, he doesn't have a right and you have a leg to stand on. So if you're afraid your husband is about to pick other women or another wife, I would advise that you have a conversation with him and you find out what his motivation for wanting another wife is. It probably could be childbirth. It probably could be because you guys are having marital problems. It could be societal pressure where you hear people say things, especially to those who it is allowed. You hear them say things, you are not a man enough if you don't have a second wife. Or maybe he's become a chief. And by virtue of the fact that he's become a chief, it's necessary that he has multiple wives. You need to have a proper conversation with him. And if this is something you knew before you got married, you may want to begin to adjust to accommodate another person. All right? Okay, I have been sent another one. Today is not supposed to be long. It's just supposed to be an introduction. I've been sent another one. I'm struggling with the dowry expectations by my fiancé's family. They are beyond my financial capabilities. How can we navigate this situation without disrespecting her family's traditions? How can we navigate these situations without disrespecting their traditions? Well, it's interesting and it's funny because, first of all, let me explain the issue of dowry. A lot of the time, the dowry, first of all, is saying thank you to the lady's family. Okay? Then a lot of the items that are requested for, not all, but a lot of the items that are requested for during the dowry go to the lady. So, for instance, they may request a certain number of cloths, they may request a certain number of so on and so forth, and it goes to the lady. Then, in some cultures, you would have to give a thank you amount to the mother, a father, the brothers, and so on. Now, if you find out that it is beyond your means, you are going to have to have a conversation first of all with your spouse, okay? First of all with your spouse, and then your spouse to be, and then the two of you are going to have to strategize on how you are going to go about it. Sometimes if she goes to her dad and she talks to her dad and she says, hey, my fiancé is starting life, he really doesn't have too much, I really want to get married, is there a way we can reduce the cost of some of these things? That's one way of going about it. In some cultures, especially cultures where you have your dowry as cows and so on, sometimes when you talk with your in-laws, they allow you to pay the cows over a certain period. Now, if the family is refusing to be reasonable in that they have decided you are not going to disrespect our daughter, you are going to pay market premium, you may have to either take a decision to delay the marriage or walk away, or your last option, which I do not advise, which I've seen some couples do, is that you purchase the items right after the wedding, it's returned for a refund because the lady is bringing them home. So she brings them home, you talk with the cloth seller, okay, I'm buying the cloth, but hey, we will be bringing back 6 pieces of cloth for a refund. I don't know what yours is going to be. I know a situation where the family was being unreasonable and the lady decided the cloths were wrapped in wrapping paper and the lady wrapped tea bread. I kid you not. The lady wrapped tea bread and she knew her husband couldn't. They are still married to this day. So they wrapped some tea bread and they put it in the suitcase. So the top 3 or 4 were, I'm not advising you to do that. The top 3 or 4 were actual cloths wrapped in, and then the ones below were tea bread. So when they went that evening, they had bread for the next 2 weeks in their marital home. But I would advise you have conversations around it. All right. I've got another one here. How do you keep being friends with the opposite sex without getting attracted to the person? How do you keep being friends with the opposite sex without being attracted to the person? My friend's father always used to say, it was funny. What he used to say is that, what business has a boy got being friends with a girl? In his mind, he just couldn't believe that it was possible for a lady to have a male friend. It is possible. It is possible to have a friend that you are not, well, you're saying, how do I keep being just friends with the opposite sex without getting attracted to the person? This is Madam E. Well, the thing about attraction is, now here's, okay, let me answer it properly. Men fall in love with their eyes. Women fall in love with their ears, okay, in most cases. So a man is attracted to you a lot of the time based on how you look first. Because men are visual creatures. So based on how you look first. Now, if you are not a guy's specs, as in the way you look or the way you carry yourself does not sexually attract the guy, for such a guy, he could be friends and not want to carry on a relationship with you. He wouldn't mind sleeping with you because men are curious by nature, and some men will sleep with anything, sometimes just out of curiosity. So first of all, you need to understand that a man's advances to have sex does not necessarily mean he's attracted to your type. On the other hand, a woman tends to fall in love more based on how the man speaks to her and how the man treats her over time. If you want to keep it as just friends, you must limit, first of all, the amount of time you spend with that particular person. You must limit the kind of interactions you have, and you must have a clear the air conversation with the person and say, hey, I hope this is above board and that is what we are doing. I think we have time for one more questions and we will have to go. Okay. Malco is saying, please, will you still have Ask Uncle Josh segments in the coming episodes? Definitely. Ask Uncle Josh is here to stay. Next week, as we tackle the first subject, you will have a lot of Ask Uncle Josh questions because out of the questions, a lot of answers come and we are able to make a lot of progress. All right, then. So we are coming to the end of our first episode. As you know, I'm a person of faith, and I would say we begin with God. So before we end, let us share a word of prayer, and then we'll take it from there. Father in heaven, we want to say thank you for your mercy, your love, your grace. We commit this year's episodes into your hands. We ask that, Lord, you will cause it to be impactful, to make a difference in people's lives, to change people's lives, that we can all grow holistically in you. We thank you and we worship you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for being a part of the Marriage Clinic podcast, episode 1 today. Next week, we are hitting the road running next week. And let me give you a sneak peek into what I'm talking about next year. Next episode, we are talking about working on yourself to be ready for love. Working on yourself to be ready for love. So please, it's going to be interesting things you must do, how to know you're ready for love. All of that is coming in next week. All right. So thank you so much. Love you all. Take care. And we'll be back next week. Bye-bye.